Well, hello. It's a pleasure being here today, Jodi. My name is Danielle Lucido, and I am the founder and CEO of Lucido Consulting, which is a leadership training executive coaching firm. I'm currently based in the Florida West Coast area, but I've been in Boston for a long time. So I'm super glad to be here with you today to share a little bit about my background and obviously hear some stories about you too, Jodi.
Excellent. This is great because mutual, the adoration that I have for Colette is humongous. I've known Colette for so many years. So Colette Greenstein, I'm just throwing her name out. She's fantastic. She literally sent me this email saying there's someone that you need to have a conversation with on your podcast. And I'm like, wow. I go, need to. I go, I'm intrigued by that. So I was like, I'm very much like Larry King. I always say I'm not Oprah, I'm not Larry King, but I focus like Larry King, meaning that I do zero homework on you. Because if I was at an event, I would meet you and I'm going to ask questions. And I'm a dangerous 10-year-old on a good day because I'm so curious about people. And so why learn about you when I can actually hear it from you? This is not the edited version. This is the full on, we have time to talk. I'm very, very excited. But why did Colette said I needed to meet you, which I'm thinking it's the business part of it, but I don't want to hear about the business part of it just yet. I want to hear about who's little Danielle. Where did Danielle come from? So let's talk about where you were raised all the way to college.
Okay, great. Yeah, Colette's amazing. So hello, Colette. So little old Danielle. So Danielle is a bit of a tomboy paradox and just someone super inquisitive and wants to know all kinds of things from nature to space to people. So I grew up in Golden, Colorado, and I'm the oldest of four kids. Grew up as a tomboy, played soccer, and through about midway through middle school, moved to Central Mass area. And since then was in the greater Boston area, lived all around the Boston area, went to college, UMass and Northeastern. So I'm currently in Florida. I moved there a couple of years ago, not this January before. And I've grown up. I've been super inquisitive, wants to make a difference in the world, wants to make people happy. And I've been through a lot of trials and tribulations and trauma and had to reinvent myself a few times, which I'm sure we'll talk about some pieces along the way. It's been an interesting journey. I kind of say I've got I'm a cat with 9 lives. I think I'm on live number 5. So I've got 4 more different reinventions up my sleeve.
The Colorado kid, Massachusetts, I mean, literally Colorado, Massachusetts, Florida. What were the ages when you did those moves? And I always say it's always interesting to see how the country is in the different perspectives, the way that you are interacting with the other people. So how was it for you? Because Colorado is amazing. I mean, it's such a beautiful place. The people, the culture, just the love of nature. New England, same thing, thrown all the education. Massachusetts, over 215 universities, colleges, and trade schools in this tiny little state. And then you go to Florida. Florida, come on, Florida's in the news every single day for something or another. So how was it? What were the ages and what was the rationale of going to these 3 locations?
Yeah, so I was grew up in Colorado. So I would say 6th grade, I moved from Colorado to Boston. And it was definitely a transition, a drastic transition, from the more not earthy crunchy, but more just down to earth vibe. And then going to Boston, going to Shrewsbury High School, the level of education was like tenfold. So I'm very grateful for the experience, but it was a culture shock for me to transition. And I know you've had some changes along your journey as well. And it took some time to fit in. I was ridiculed for a while in middle school. I was, but I found my way through sports. Luckily, I was an athlete. I played soccer and I was able to kind of create my way. But it was definitely a change because there's a certain level of leveling up, so to speak, with some of the education here in the greater Boston area. But so I only moved to Florida last year. So I'm in my 40s. So I spent my good chunk of my 20s and 30s in the Boston area. So Yeah, it's been away, and I've traveled the whole country. We'll get into this too. I've been a digital nomad these past 2 years, in addition to running my business. So I've had the pleasure of traveling the whole country and checking out the different cultures and the different
We're not
vibes.
there yet.
So,
Well,
yeah.
don't,
All right.
you are jumping ahead of the game, my friend. We're
All
not
right.
there yet.
I'll pause there. Yes.
You played sports. What was the major going into school, so going to college? So, I'm sorry, let's rewind a little bit. Your parents, you are an entrepreneur. I always say to people that entrepreneur is in your DNA, whether you think it is or not, whether you're an entrepreneur on the outside or entrepreneur inside of a business, it's in your DNA to actually create, lead, make changes. Did you see this throughout in your family that led you to where you are right now, number one, but also to the major that you took on in school? Because playing sports is definitely a great connector to bring people together. But you're still having to do the academics and the socialization and everything else, going from, again, the casualness of Colorado to like Massachusetts. You're very kind about it, but we are A-types. We're A-types, and we move fast, we talk fast, and people always say, once you come to Massachusetts, it's very hard to like get in there. Like, it's very, very hard, because once we have you in, we love you forever. We will take you on, we will adore you, but it takes a little bit longer to get in the fold. So can you talk about that transition? Because yes, the sports was there, but the transition between Colorado, there's so many questions. Transition between Colorado and Massachusetts, a little bit deeper. Your parents, do they have the entrepreneurial spirit? What did your parents do? You have other siblings. Do they have the same experiences as you?
Lots of great questions there. So I would say for me, my journey about trying to get into the fold, and where the secret sauce of my entrepreneurial nature, I think was kind of brought from playing sports and being an athlete. I remember actually growing up, I loved kind of beating boys on the soccer field. I just loved, I don't know, had this weird thing where I just wanted to kick their butts. So I would literally be playing sports with the boys on the soccer field, and that kind of, it gave me some tenacity and some grit. And it also transpired to like being one of the more top players on the team. And so through that process, I learned, the power of leadership, power of teamwork, power of camaraderie, and just there's something magical that happens when you can create that culture on the team to rise above and win those championships and stuff like that. So I think that that's a piece of where my entrepreneur nature comes from. My parents were not entrepreneurs. My dad was an engineer. He was glued to his computer screen, always writing code, super dedicated, worked hard. I get my working hard genes from him. My mother was a social worker. She was all about believing the big dream, going after what you want, caring for the less fortunate, and women that have been through bad times. So I have that part of my heart nature and going after dreams and helping people and pulling people through. So that's where the essence of kind of my life direction comes from. But the tenacity and the entrepreneur comes from my grit and just being a competitor. I just love to, but not just selfishly. I never really liked my own sports. I loved team sports more so. So does that kind of paint a little different picture?
It does, but you missed. You did really good about answering the questions, but you missed one. Your siblings.
Oh yes. Was their experience the same? So let's see. I'm oldest of 4, and then my younger sister is only 3 years younger than me. My 2 younger brothers are 10 years younger than me. So I almost kind of babysat them and was in their world more as like a motherly figure, and sister, of course. So I actually have to ask them what their experience like that journey was like. They were pretty young. My sister, I don't think she had this. So she wasn't into sports as much. She definitely had a difficult time in that transition, finding her way for sure. But she's happy as a clam now in South Shore, and she's very successful in her own ways. She's a social worker actually too. So it's interesting.
She followed mom.
Yeah, she followed mom's direction.
And the 2 younger siblings, what do they do?
So my 2 younger brothers, they're Irish twins, and one now lives back in Colorado. He moved back to Colorado, and he's a traveler trainer for a grocery store and grocery store company. And then my youngest brother has his own company down in Florida, and he's a certified trainer, and trained like 30,000 people, and has built a whole business. So I'm learning a ton from him because he's a millennial and he knows all kinds of cool things about marketing and funnels, and oh my gosh, it's kind of mind-boggling what these millennials know. But
I love it. That's fantastic. All right. So what was your major in college?
So I majored in finance and I had a minor in economics. Thought I was going to go that direction. Went to mortgages, but well, actually worked for Investors Bank and Trust. My very first job, 6 months in Boston, and it was a little too tight for me. I like the people aspect of things, so have meandered from then. But got my master's at Northeastern in leadership in 2014. So with the go ahead.
No, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I'm fascinated always whenever someone goes into finance and yet then they leave. It's like the whole entire concept of, hey, I'm Catholic, but I don't like what's happening in church, so I'm going to convert to something else. But then when a major topic comes up, you're like, still think like a Catholic. So do you still think like a finance? No matter what you do you still think like a finance person? Because it's the first thing that you actually gravitated towards.
I think, economically, I think that was my minor. So I love how the interplay of things work. From economies to academia, like the society at large. So I guess yes, but not the finance though. Not the finance. I think I just did it because I didn't know what else to do, and I know it's kind of weird how I did that. A lot of people do that though, right? They go to a college for a certain degree, they're not sure what they want to do. So, yeah,
it's true. It's absolutely true. How did you graduate from college? Your first couple of jobs?
So I graduated from college. My first couple of jobs, well, Investors Bank and Trust was my first job. From there, I found myself floating into the mortgage industry. It was a hot thing back then, and it's even hot now today, real estate and all that. But yeah. What's that?
What year was that?
2001, 2002. And that's kind of the blossoming of why I do what I do today, because I ended up like working for a company that was my husband at the time. It was a family-run company, grew it from a 4-person operation to 50 people and 5 offices. So at 25 years old, I was running a $20 million company and was very successful in my own right. And it was very good at the business aspect. It didn't really know how to lead people. So that's kind of the little inkling that spawned the power of what I do now. But after that, I got my executive coaching certificate, went into executive director roles in education, post-education schools. So ran a school in Portland, and I ran a school in Malden, Mass, Portland, Maine, and Malden, Mass. And then went to work at Linkage, which is a leadership training and consulting firm based in Burlington, Mass, for about 5 years prior to starting my own practice. So it's been a little eclectic. Started out in family-run companies, got my, continued my education, then went into leading education firms, then consulting. So it's been a little. Every 5 years, I kind of want to reinvent myself and take things that I've learned and apply it to a different genre. And I know you've had somewhat of a similar journey, doing a couple different things and projects and transformation.
Well, the funny thing is, you had mentioned that earlier. I haven't. I've done the same thing consistently, which is funny. Where I have different titles, but I do the same exact thing. So for 30 years, I've done the same exact thing under the umbrella of marketing. And I focus on humans. That's the only thing that's different in regards of what I focus on is that there are marketing firms that they want your product. They want to sit there and have your building. I mean, they want to sit there and have called the business. And I'm like, it's not that it's not interesting, but that's not what interests me. I'm interested in humans. Being first generation born in America, learning how to speak English, really understanding and watching. I mean, I watch people. I mean, during the pandemic, holy moly, best case study in the world for me, because I was watching people and how they react, and how, whether they were at work or whether they're at home, whether they were by themselves, it's like the world was in a petri dish for me. And I'm like, oh my God, let's see what happens next. How do people grow out of this? And so for us, it was great because the humans never went away, whether I was here or not. The only difference is 70% of my time I'm overseas, working with clients versus via Zoom, but I was still working with them via Zoom. So it's always fun because I was like a communications and journalism and a sociology double major undergrad, and everyone's like, you are entertained and you just gravitate to. I'm like, I love people watching. I love being with people. I love asking questions. So just talking to people is always just my fun place to be. But I've done the same thing literally since I started my career as a teacher for second graders and sixth graders in the Brockton and Sharon school system, and still consistent the same, where who's your target audience? What's the problem? What's the solution?
Yeah. yeah, and everything kind of falls into place when you understand the mechanisms of these things, right? And so, and you're right, bringing the story and the brand, no matter what business or what company, what industry, they all need that, right? You know, whether you're a small one-person shop or 10,000 employees. And so, you know, similar with my background in the sense that I do like the marketing, but I don't major in that. It's more the leadership aspect and how does it all play together, and how do we elevate together, and in essence have our own little soccer team, so we can, you know, make a bigger impact in the world and get better results, you know, with people and business, you know. So
well, I was gonna say, I feel that a lot of individuals that I've spoken to that are athletes, it's literally embedded in you so well. That whole entire, the leadership is like, no, it doesn't matter what position you are playing. It is like so inside your skull of like, I go, how do we sit there and take all this knowledge and create a business with it? Because the only thing that comes close to that I can think of is when I go to Israel and I see the military. I mean, they leave the military. This is why it's entrepreneur nation, startup nation, I should say, because they are embedded with the whole entire bringing people together, the strategy, and building something that will change the world. And so other than sports, the Israeli military is the only place that I see that there's synergy of how do we grow something, and not just a business, but how do we grow something to make change? Because there's clearly a pain point that we've had. And because of that pain point, we are going to make that change, and we're going to find the right people to actually grow it. And I've never seen an athlete or an athlete that's focused, got to say that, or an Israeli military person that hasn't seen something that they want and has absolutely succeeded each time. Because more and more as you, I mean, I think it's because of the ecosystem that I'm surrounded by. But the athletes part, you're seeing more and more athletes growing business. They know that their bodies are not going to sustain a long time. I mean, no one's Tom Brady. So their bodies are not going to sustain. And so they want to find new ways of how do I continue to build that brand off of what I've done. And so the business aspect is huge because not everyone can be a sportscaster afterwards.
Yeah, so true. You got then that's where the reinvention comes in. And how can you take the essence of who you are and apply it in a new way and repurpose yourself? Which is hard.
Very much the Cher Madonna thing.
Yes, which is hard. I mean, another little element of my background, which is interesting, is I actually broke my leg senior year of high school, excuse me. So I was supposed to play for soccer for college, and I lost everything, lost like my ability to play, and had to re-identify myself. And I remember laying on the bed in the hospital when I was, you know, trying to get tended to. I was so upset about them cutting my beautiful soccer shorts that I just bought. They were like this perfect listening little color. And I'm like, you gotta cut, no, don't cut it off. Meanwhile, my leg's like mangled, but I'm like more concerned about my shorts because I love my soccer shorts and my identity. So that was the first part of how do I reinvent myself in the future. But and a lot of athletes face that too, because their whole identity is wrapped up in that. But that's a conversation for another day.
No, it's a conversation for now, because you kind of like glossed over that. You kept on like, I mean, again, you've been teasing where tragedies, things, and then you walk away, and then you go back, and you're like, and then you're like, oh yeah, that when I blew out my leg. So how did that happen? I go, and what I mean, so your senior year, right?
Yeah.
Senior year of high school. Okay, so your senior year of high school, you have been playing soccer for how many years at this point?
Yeah, since I was a kid, so 5, 6, 7, yeah. So yeah.
So this is it, and you just said it's your identity. It's absolutely your identity. How did it happen? And tell me the rest of the story of that.
Yeah, it's so I was playing indoor soccer, which is on turf, so it's a little bit, it's not like gravel, which is it's dangerous in its own right. I was on a breakaway, and the goalie came through, and she slide tackled me, and my leg was planted, so she came through, slide tackled me, broke my left shin bone, the big bone. It's only one big bone. Yeah, big bone, and it was a compound fracture. It was a terrible break. Had to go into the hospital at UMass Memorial for about 8 weeks. I almost lost my leg. I was open. The swelling was so terrible. They kept my leg open for a while, and they put a rod down my shin. So I do set off metal detectors when I go through the airports. But and if I don't, I'm like, I should be, setting something off here. But it was horrible. It was horrible because I lost who I was. I lost my ability to be with my team members. I think I never really understood how it's good for stress and having a sense of belonging and purpose. there's all these things that you just don't, you take for granted when you're part of, something like this and have an injury. So I had to grapple with that. And I was every single time I'd go back to the doctors, I would beg him, can I please play again? And he's like, not now, not now. So I was unable to play soccer again, which is unfortunate, but things happen. Things happen.
Out of curiosity, I mean, so you're in Western Mass. Was it not an
Central
Mass? You're in Central Mass. Was it not an option to come to Boston? I mean, MGH Sports is the best of the best. I mean, we are known for the best hospitals. And I mean, and mind you, you're a young person at this time, and it's not your decision, it's your parents' decision. But was that never an option of conversation?
It's a great point. I don't think it was ever brought up. They put me to a different hospital first, and it wasn't covered by insurance. So I was driving around a couple different hospitals, even the broken leg, trying to figure out which one to cover. So there was that element. So maybe there was something more at play. But that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. That's a good point. Yeah.
I think that's like being here, I take for granted. I mean, so I run track, I run marathons.
Oh, do you?
Went from being a sprinter to running long distance, which is so silly, but I run marathons. But I also know that my body is prone for injuries because it's I mean, like I have thighs that are just not meant to be a long distance runner. But I live and breathe and thank God for MGH all the time, because when I have something, I know my doctors, I know who I'm going to. And even when the marathon bombing happened, that was huge for everyone that was that was there, that was from around the world. They knew that they had that here. Med people were going to already be here, but our teams are just known for the Celtics, the Patriots. I mean, and so that's one of those moments whenever there's like a situation, I always think, my brain always goes to, we have the best doctors in the world. They can save anyone, they can get anyone back on the field. And that's a naive part for me, where I take it for granted, where it's not always the case.
Yeah. But it's a good point though, for people, if they listen to this and they have someone they know actually has an injury, that they don't have to always go with one definitive answer, especially in the Boston area. So yeah, great point.
That feeling of, I'm going to say despair, I mean, because you are young. So it's those years of, I'm so excited to go to college. I'm going to play soccer. This is like what I've been identified for throughout my entire life at this point. And now as an injury, this is the very first time that you're rediscovering who you are. How long did it take and how did you get there? Because there's a lot of people during the pandemic, before the pandemic, and it's going to be well after the pandemic, that are retiring. And this is what I've always been known for. I worked for GE, I worked at Google, I've worked at these companies for XYZ amount of time, and they leave and they're like, yeah, I'm lost. A young person, I mean, you go into college and you were the star, you're in every single hometown paper, and you go into college and you are like, who am I now? Like, who am I? So how was it for you to try to figure out who you were at that time, knowing that every single conversation with the doctor led to them saying, you're not going to play anymore. And in your mind, you're thinking, like, then what happens next to me?
Yeah. It's a great question. And I feel like it took years. It took my entire college to really find a new element of who I was. And I think also your value sometimes whether you're retiring, you're empty nestering, you're going through a divorce, like your sense of beingness is, you forget how much it actually is connected to the unity of the social environment that you're in, right? So I was just worked on myself and doubled down on focused on school. I worked multiple jobs. I pretty much paid my way through school. My dad paid a little bit of it, but I worked my butt off, paying my way for like apartments. So the way I handle it, which may not be the best way, is to dive into education or learn a new trade or get a new certificate or channel that exploration into something new. So I can kind of repurpose it. But what I've learned as I've gotten older, sometimes I never really dealt with pain as much as I could have done better. So that's the other part that's tough. You have to deal with the grieving process of your identity. And so I'm still even working on aspects of myself in my 20s. It's always a work in progress, but so I would say that I focus on something. I tend to refocus on something that's positive, work on myself, my physical self, emotional self, Yeah, just try to, and then hopefully through that process, you can, find something new that you can latch onto and find more value. But it's hard. It's hard because it's almost like you're swimming around and you're lost and you don't know where to go. So yeah.
I love how you said that, because I think that's one of the things that people are really experiencing right now, that they're lost. They're lost, whether they were furloughed, whether they were fired, whether they just decide to leave the job. And they're like, or even more, as I'm sure you've encountered this, the empty nesters. I mean, the amount of kids that now finally, like, it was like a tease where they went off to college and they were pulled back home and they're like, yay! Parents were like, I didn't want them here, but I'm so excited they're here. And then now they're gone again. And they're like, this was a horrible tease to my emotional roller. This is like an emotional roller coaster. So now I go to work, but I come home and I'm a wife still, or maybe I'm a husband or whatever's, but who am I? So people aren't even just having that identity crisis of trying to figure out who they are at work, professionally, personally, they're just trying to figure out, I used to be identified as this, and now I'm identified as, they think, nothing. And I'm like, no, you were still a person before the kids, before the husband or wife. So there is that identity. So I love what you just said was the grieving of the person that you were, which is so cool. So cool, because people don't do that. They do have the pity parties, the pint of ice cream pity parties, where they're like, I go, woe is me. And then they look towards other people that are unattainable, the Kardashians or Michelle Obama. They look to those people that are so unattainable that I'm okay with wishing I was them because it's so unattainable, versus the person that's someone that they can mentor with, that they're like, I could be that person because that person's next door and look what they're doing. So I love that they're grieving, but how do they go from the grieving to the kicking themselves back up? And this is all from your experience from when you were younger, coming up to when you're older.
Yeah, and it's like a tank. It's like a circle that keeps on weaving around from time to time with different things that have happened all throughout my life. But grieving, how do you deal with grieving? Well, it's allowing you to have the space to process. Choosing to sit and not know and be okay with that. That's hard. That's so hard. And I think it's also about understanding that you are capable of more than just this one petal of the flower that you are. Like, we are multidimensional beings capable of exponential things and create exponential things and become. And I think it affords you the once you get out of the pain of the emotional aspect of it, you can kind of move through more of a maybe this won't be so bad. So there's William Bridges has the human side of change, which is also used in organization. There's a great model. I love models that kind of, tighten complex things. And there's this human aspect of when change occurs, you go down, you're in denial, you're in fear, you're in anger, you're in, all these things. But then as you start to come out of that, you start to like have a little bit more positive attitude. Oh, maybe I can try this, and you get inspired. So it's giving yourself grace to go through that process is key. Knowing that it's okay not to know, and not beating yourself up is half the battle. It's hard, so hard, because we're expected to know who we are and what we're doing all the time. So it's very foreign to us to be in that lost space of the unknowing.
The unknowing. So now you've had this experience, and which is, I honestly, I remember when I broke my leg, and I ran the Boston Marathon. I was totally cocky, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to train for the Boston Marathon in 2 months because I'm an athlete. I'm an athlete, and I do the Walk for Hunger, which is 20 miles, 6.2 miles added on. What's the big difference? The arrogance on me was huge. And so I went out there and I did 26.2 miles, and I was feeling a little kind of like aches and pains. And I went to the doctor, and he's like, you know what? You have fully fatigued your body. Fully fatigued your body. Do nothing for 3 months. Like, if it was up to me, lay there, do nothing for 3 months. Your body. Wow. Like, oh, okay. And for anyone that's listening, I put this quotes, okay.
Yeah.
Because
okay, buddy.
What happened? It was a beautiful New England day. And as New Englanders, if it's a beautiful New England day, we are outside. We are doing something. So I threw on the rollerblades. I was living in Everett, Medford area, because I was working at Kiss 108. And I was working at NECN, New England Cable News at the time. and I threw on my rollerblades. I was so excited, and I hopped in my car. I went to Arlington on the Minuteman Trail, and I went rollerblading. And there was this guy that was like, those athletes on your right, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna move out of your way. I hear you. And then all of a sudden, I went up on this little hill, and I'm like, I go, no big deal. Got out of his way, and I came down off the hill, and my upper bone shattered into my lower bone. Ooh. Just like that, just like that. And my knee blew up like a balloon within seconds. I'm like, well, that's never happened before when I fell. Like, what's this?
No.
I was miles away from my car, and I'm like, huh. So this wonderful, kind gentleman had a bike, and he just wheeled me back to my car. I drive a manual, because of course, Murphy's Law, I drive a manual. And I was like, I got home, and I called my aunt that's a nurse, and she's like, just take a couple of Advil, ice it, it's probably fine. I'm like, okay. And then kept on getting worse. I'm like, I'm just going to eat Advil like it's candy. A cousin was in town. I'm like, I was giving him the tour. I'm walking on it, and he's like, are you okay? I'm like, oh, I think so. I wrapped it really tight, Advil. And then Sunday I broke, I'm like, I'm really hurt.
Something's wrong.
Went to the emergency room. They did an x-ray, and they're like, oh, nothing's broken. You probably tore ligaments. I'm like, oh, I can live with that. I went to NECN, went back to work, and they were blowing up my phone, and I didn't even pay attention to it. They knew I worked for a TV station. They called the newsroom, and then they're like, get Jodi Charles on the phone right now. They had done an MRI, and on the MRI was spider webs of brokenness.
Oh no.
All broken. And I was walking on it, so I made it worse. So I was pretty much in a cast for a year.
Yeah. That's horrible. Ugh.
Again, the athlete and our arrogance of we'll be fine. We will be fine. Because I think this is what carries us to the business world. We will be fine. We'll figure it out. We're so arrogant, cocky, determined, all of the above.
Yeah. And the other piece of it, which is another side topic, but is the body always knows if we can tune into the body, right? So, throughout my career, the doctor said you should lay out, not do nothing if your body needs rest, right? There were some times I became allergic to stress because of just the pressure of always performing and blah, blah, blah. And at one point my doctor says, your stress is killing you, you need a job. So, these things are little signals, right? That can kind of point us in new directions and remind, because the body keeps track. So you can listen to it.
Well, think about before an animal attacks, it gives warnings. Do we pay attention to those warnings? No, no. Our body gives us so many warnings, and yet we're like, oh, it's fine. And then when it's not fine anymore, the doctor's like, you do know, here are signs that would happen. Were you not paying attention? Well, I thought it was just like a tummy ache because I ate something bad.
So true. And as an entrepreneur, we always just want to blow through it, just like you said, just blow. It'll be fine. Yeah.
It'll be fine.
But
all right.
But it won't be sometimes.
I know. This is about deflecting. There's so much to talk about. Talk to me about how you decided to start this business, because again, you discussed about how you started your finance. You're doing it. You had the jobs. You had a couple of things that happened to you. Why did you decide this is business? When did you decide to start the business, and why did you decide to start the business?
Yeah, so it was a compilation of a couple things. I was working at Linkage, the leadership training firm in Burlington for about 5 years, had a couple different roles with them, and they work with Fortune 500 large organizations, and I just felt called back to the small and mid-sized companies to help them. That wasn't their focus necessarily. They wanted to focus on the more large, giant enterprise projects, which is great. But I felt, because I've grown up and my career has been more in the small to mid-sized companies, I wanted to take what I've learned and apply those skill sets, the certifications and the tools, so that if someone's a CEO of 20 people or 50 people, that might be something I could provide some service to us. So it was percolating on it about 6 months before I launched, and that was really the driving force. Is I think I'm ready to fly the coop and do this on my own, and have enough confidence in my knowing again that I'm capable with everything I know, and just apply it to a different target market. So because I believe everybody deserves to have a leadership coach or have leadership training. I mean, when I was running the companies that I ran, I didn't have, but I had to learn the hard way. I had to learn through experience and eventually taking classes and getting support. I wish I belonged to like a Vistage or had a coach or something, because you make mistakes and you hurt people by accident sometimes. So yeah, so I started that. So I started because I wanted to change my target market and be independent and give the gift of leadership and the content that Linkage has that I'm certified in, and apply to other folks so they can get the help that they deserve, so they can create cultures that are better. Because there are toxic leaders which are tough to get rid of, but there are good leaders that just don't know how to lead. So creating cultures of inclusion and psychological safety is the key, I think, in the way forward in business. And so I just love to help leaders find out how to be that way so they can get results with their people and culture and business. So yeah.
I think that and I love pulling things from what you just said was not, there are people that shouldn't be leaders, but there are people that don't know how to lead. And I think that's one of the things where people just assume I got this leadership role. I walk in there and all the bad habits that I've ever accumulated from the past are now part of me. And yet there's no training for that. There's so much training for your finance. There's training for your tech. There's training for your CEO, not really training, but more networking with other CEOs. But bad habits still are formed, and they can be dissolved if you have the right person coming in to help that. And people are not aware of that. And so just out of curiosity, when you're working with organizations or leadership role, individuals in leadership roles, what was that aha moment that got to you? Because I know I'm under the umbrella of marketing, because once they figure out who they are, they usually come to me, where now they're like, okay, I need to sit there and get myself out to the masses. So when it's coming to, what are the low-hanging fruit clients that you are getting? What happened where all of a sudden, Danielle, I need your help? Yeah.
A lot of it tends to be, you mentioned Petri dish. So, when people are working firms and organizations, there's a whole bunch of social dynamics at play. And some of my clients struggle with power trips, political aspects, not getting things done that they need to get done because they have to work in a matrix organization. So it's tough, it's political, and they don't know how to elevate their influence so they can get things done. Sometimes they have some own internal biases and beliefs that have held them back, which the outer world doesn't even see, but they hold themselves back. And so what's really fascinating, the aha moments for me that excite me the most is showing my clients how amazing they really are. And they just didn't know it because they're walking around as if they aren't that great or they can't really do it. And then from that point, from self-awareness and self-assessment, they can celebrate what makes them amazing and lean into that more. But also I recognize where the blind spots are so they can address it so that doesn't become a feeding frenzy within the organization, because we all have blind spots. And also loving our blind spots so we don't let that take over as, just take over identity in that aspect of things. Some people are good at detail, some people are visionary, some people, what have you. But so my aha moments are showing my clients how great they really are, empowering them to and have the courage to see their blind spots. The last part is helping them recognize what their own inner truth and power is so that they can really make a bigger impact in the organizations. And it's an integrated process. Trusting your intuition and gut.
But what gets them to you? Like what is that? What's their aha moment where it's time that I need to come to you?
Usually because they're struggling and they realize people are passing them by for career opportunities. They're noticing some of their colleagues get the job or get the opportunity, but they're not. And so they need to retool. Another aspect is if they just get the job and they're having like the imposter syndrome. That's another key attribute where they're like, okay, gosh, I got to put my big britches on even bigger here. So you have to elevate, right? So leading 20 people is different than leading 100 people, is different than leading 200 people. And you have to kind of elevate and grow and tweak how you operate. So how you delegate. There's some tactical aspects you have to learn, but it's expanding your capability so you can kind of grow into the role that you deserve to be in. So.
Well, I love that because I think that's one of the things that people struggle with a lot is admitting that it's time for help. Mm-hmm. I mean, because it's not only where if your boss says, hey, maybe we should get you some training. And then they're like, oh, what do you mean? I'm fine. And then to have that, to have your come to Jesus moment and say like, oh, wait, you're right. I can't get that job. I can't get that promotion. And I am qualified. I'm wholeheartedly qualified, and I'm not able to get to that next level because I can't get out of my own way.
Exactly. And women leaders too. Women leaders, we have additional hurdles, which I actually wasn't aware of this until I became worked at Linkage, because I was used to smaller businesses. So I actually experienced the journey of being I was used to being the big fish in a small pond. Then I was a small fish in a big pond. So I was going through my own imposter syndrome and my own journey. But women leaders have additional hurdles because there are nuances that we carry through, and we hold ourselves back. And so there's just a little more work that we have to do. And I actually didn't see that at first, but then I became more aware of that, when I understood the bigger dynamics at play. Because I didn't want to be like, well, why should women be treated differently in other underrepresented groups? But the truth is, there is some additional help that needs to happen. Not that they're not capable, we're all capable. It's just some things we have to work on so that we don't hold ourselves back too. So
being global, so there's certain things that I don't gravitate towards, like where the imposter syndrome, I go, well, that's just so bizarre to me, that term. Well, I made my interns look up where it came from. It came from an MTV show, and a woman actually wrote a book on it, which is like hysterical. I'm hearing, because when I'm doing speaking engagements and young kids come to me about this, I'm like, you guys know where it came from, because before you use a phrase, please dig deep and find out where it came from. And I was hearing it so often. I'm like, smart. What is this? Look, what you went to school, you did a job, you have all these degrees, you've worked your tail off. What is this imposter thing that's happening here? So I'm not a fan of that. It is definitely being used, but I'm just not a fan of that, because it literally, it's like that one, and also cancel culture, only because now you're planting the seed of doubt in someone. So that doubt wasn't there. They were rocking it. And that one person now just planted the seed ever so perfectly. And it's not even a deep seed, but it's right there on the surface. And now it's growing into something that didn't need to be there at all. And so I feel like that a lot of people were giving power to words. But even with the whole entire underrepresented groups, being a person that travels around the world, that could mean Brazil, that could mean Haiti, that could mean so many places. So when people are using that, I'm like, I live in Massachusetts, where by law, there's affordable housing in every single city in town, 351 cities and towns. So I'm in Marblehead. There's underrepresented people in Marblehead, and everyone's like, no, there aren't. I'm like, but there are. Yeah. But I live in a state so when people are using these terms, I'm like, where are we? We're using them so frequently that you have to know who you're talking to before the words are used. And I think that's one of the things that is now becoming a handicap for a lot of people, that I'm focused, I'm on the train's going really well. And all of a sudden there's this big sign saying, no more tracks. You're like, whoa, no, I Googled this. I map questions. There was a track there before. What the hell is going on right now? And so I think that we as leaders that help people get out of their own way and really take away those little seeds. We're like, yeah, that seed was planted, but we can think of it's a dead seed. Let's get rid of that seed. Yeah. Focusing on the bigger picture.
Totally. And that's a good point. And it's funny you're saying that. When I was walking yesterday, I'm like, wow, it's so funny how it's how they try to get us focused on certain things when it's not really the thing we need to focus on, period, end of story. Right.
Derailment. Absolute derailment. All time. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's so fun. And that's actually the key right now. I mean, I'm big into meditation and all that. I don't know if you are into meditation and yoga. We as a society need to unplug, and leaders, I lead a couple healthy leadership facilitations at the Women's Leadership Conference around unplugging, so we can kind of tune into ourselves and we get to choose what we want to focus on if we just have that conscious effort to be mindful of that, right? So yeah, very true.
I think that with the meditation part, so I always tell people all meditations are not, meditation is not all the same. So pick and choose your thing. So my mother, she's a chef, and the kitchen is her happy place. I go, for me, photography, garden, and painting, my happy place. So meditating is not like, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. People just think that they hear meditation and that's what they assume. I'm like, it's whatever you can sit there and do exactly what you just said, to unplug. Yep. And even if you're not in technology, just unplugging from the world and being in Zen with yourself, finding that thing. What does that mean? Going for a walk? Go for a walk and be observant of every single thing.
Flowers, the nature. Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. So it's like, I think that's one of the things where, yes, I know when to walk away from everything, and I know how to shut down. Wednesdays are my days off. And on those Wednesdays, I go to museums. I can go to the beach.
Wow.
I find things because I can learn so much from the world when everyone's at work and everyone's at school. It's awesome. It's
And
really,
you
really
get
good.
and you get inspired. You're like, you get the muse, like they become your muse. The museums become your muse. So I love it.
Well, in true reality, the weekends are not your day off. It's not your day
No.
off. You are going to weddings. You're going to baseball. We're going everywhere. We're not actually taking time off. So that's why I chose. I mean, Monday, Tuesday, I hustle. Wednesday, I get so excited for Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, hustle. It's amazing. And also, I have clients in the Mid East, so Sundays I work. And so it
Yeah.
is one of those where like I tell all my clients I need to take one day off during the week, and they're like, oh, I can't do that. I'm like, well, it's kind of required to work with me because and I tell them, I'm like, I know you're a liar, so you have to show proof by sending me pictures. And they're like, what is happening here? I'm like, it's my rule.
Wow. I love that. I love that you do that. I love it. I love that you take time for you. This is exactly what we need to do is if we can, I know some organizations don't allow you, but find your opportunity where you can carve out 2 hours. You can have that maybe on Friday or what have you to just spend time with yourself and, fuel yourself up.
Well, and
So I love it.
how a lot of companies are saying you don't have to come back to work because you're being more productive. Yes, I'm being more productive because I'm able to spend more time with myself. I'm able to sit and cook proper meals. I'm able to exercise. I'm able to do all that stuff where I was like, get up, get the kids ready, get the husband ready, get the wife ready, get in the car. I'm in the car for an hour and a half. Oh, great, there's traffic. I mean, all that hubbubaloo is now gone for a lot of people. And now they're able to like, oh yeah, of course I'm producing better at work because I'm happier.
Exactly. And you're plugged in, more effective. You're more effective. Yeah.
More effective,
And
100%,
Mhm.
100%.
Yeah.
When the pandemic happened, I mean, so we are, for all the people out there that said 2021, the pandemic is going to be over, and hello, we're still in the pandemic. Pandemics. What was it like at the beginning of the pandemic for you, and where are you now?
Mm.
Well,
Well,
professionally and personally.
So it's a perfect mix of two. So right, I started my business right before the pandemic, and I mean, when we were kind of quarantined those 2 months, it was a little bit of a depression because I had my whole plan. I was ready to rock and roll. I had my marketing. I was ready to rock, and of course, none of that was gonna fly. So it was really about taking a step back, processing the shift in mini identity, because what I was going to do is not what is meant. I had a handful of clients, ready to keep me afloat. But I was just going to keep those clients and just cruise through. That was my strategy. So I didn't focus on expanding or growing. I just focused on being more balanced in myself, actually. Working less, but experiencing more was my motto. But because, leadership is definitely necessary, but organizations cut back a lot. And so I was just grateful for the clients that I had. And I was just going to focus on spending time in balance, even though there's chaos outside of the door. Right. And then this year I've started to do some more programs that are more individual based. So I'm kind of shifting my programming slightly to be less corporate. Some aspects of leadership training, yes, but I'm going to start talking more about like different lifestyles, minimalist lifestyles, designing your life. Because if you notice, there's such a shift going on in our world. People are actually leaving their jobs a lot now, but because now they're waking up to the fact that, what do I want my life to be like now? So do I want to accept this? Do I want to work and actually work only 3 days a week instead of 5? So I kind of think we're opening this Pandora box of opportunity. So I have shifted my focus to be inclusive of different things that the market and individuals need. So that's the professional aspect. And personally, I've also embraced that journey of not putting so much effort and focus on, cranking and gerbil wheel and, what have you. But kind of trying to be in tune with the heartbeat of what's going on, but not letting the fear take over as well. Because that's if you watch the news all the time, that's going to happen. It's going to take over your whole life. So that's kind of, and then I don't know, I know we're kind of close for time, but on a fun note, I may have shared this with you in the email, but I actually bought a van and I've been traveling the country as a digital nomad, running my business through my van, and I'm in my van right now. So it's been a kind of fun exploration of everything in my life. So
I'm cracking up because I'm thinking of that movie that's just like up for an Oscar this weekend, of that woman that she like, yeah, she like hopped in a van because you can't, not everyone can do that.
Yeah,
Just want
not everyone.
not like just bebop around and just travel around the country, you know, or travel around certain areas of the country. And so safety wise, not everyone can do it. Why did you decide to do that? Because that, I mean, one, it's the world is a focus group. For what we do, the world is a focus group. So that's always an amazing thing. So you're in a van traveling around the country. I'm leaving the country and I'm like, I investigate the world.
So cool. That's so cool.
Well, it's fun. Again, I was conceived in Haiti. I was born in America. I learned how to speak English when I was 8 years old. And it's always so fascinating how people are seeing us from the outside and how we, even like when immigrants come here, how we're being perceived overall. So
totally.
How are you seeing the world? Now you are traveling. I mean, how many states have you gone to so far?
All but 4 in the country.
All but 4. Holy crap, that's amazing.
Yeah. I haven't been to North Dakota, Arkansas, West Virginia, they're all, unfortunately, they're kind of scattered. So I don't know if I'm gonna get to them, but yeah.
All right. So, and this is one long loop of a trip, or is this like you go home, you come back, you go, like you do the zigzag?
So I did one loop to loop, which is just, I went for last year, right after the first June of last year, I went up to Colorado and then went back to Boston and came down.
Okay.
I was like my first like stretching my legs. And then this time around, I actually went the full perimeter of Texas all the way up. I went up to Colorado, came back down to Arizona, did the Pacific Coast Highway all the way up to Washington and then all the way across back to Boston. So it's
for anyone that's doing, I mean, so I've done the cross country trip twice. I loved it. I absolutely loved it in every single way. I mean, I was it was like I was in my 20s. I was working for a teen tour camp and we had to meet the kids or we had the kids with us. So it was amazing. It was amazing.
Wasn't it cool? Wasn't it amazing?
Oh,
Didn't
awesome.
It blew up my idea. Yeah.
But I'm a cute little girl with an awesome tan. And in certain areas, my team were like, I go, we're going to keep you in the bubble because we can't let you go off by yourself. So you are a woman, you're beautiful, you have blonde hair, you can get away with a lot of things, but at the same time, you're beautiful, you have blonde hair, and you're traveling by yourself. How was that?
And now, a message from our sponsor. Since 2017, the Foundation for Business Equity has existed to support Black and Latinx-led companies in reaching their full potential by providing access to critical growth tools that include expanded networks, capital, and markets. To learn more about the Foundation for Business Equity, FBE, visit fbequity.org. And now, back to our guest.
Yes. I had to have major situational awareness. I was trying to blend in more than I was trying to stand out. So I would, kind of just wear my sweatshirt, my hat, be unassuming, let's put it that way. So, and then at night when I'd find my certain areas that I was parking in, if it was a remote area or whatnot, I would make sure I'd walk my dog in one area and then park in another because I didn't want them to see it was just me. Sometimes I would leave 2 shoes, like if 2 sets of shoes outside, like a pair of boots, so people might think I have a male with me or a partner with me. And sometimes when I'm meeting people and having conversations, I would plant the seed that I was with somebody if I felt that it was necessary, which it's okay to lie in those situations.
100%, 100%, because it's one of the things where I feel like as a business owner, I talk in the third party a lot. And I don't do it on purpose to be weird, but it's when you're in situations where, I go to countries and I land and there's a sign that says my name and everyone's like, how do you know what the person's name? I go, I don't at all. I see my name and I go with this person. I was in Bulgaria, place that I never thought I was going to speak. Amazing country, by the way. Amazing country. But literally that's usually the MO. I see my name and then I just kind of like, and
interesting,
and hope for the best.
Interesting. So that's a good point. Maybe the call to action there is to like validate who's the person that's going to pick you up, right? Like the do Uber.
No, so I always have the name, but the tricky part is you go to countries and you don't have to speak the language. So in Bulgaria, the good thing is I speak French. So the gentleman that picked me up didn't know how to speak English. I didn't know how to speak Bulgarian. but he knew how to speak French. And I'm like, yes, yay, mom and dad for keeping that French alive.
How many languages do you speak, Jodi?
I speak 3 languages. Well, I should say I speak 2 English, French, and Haitian Creole. I understand. So Haitians get freaked out because they'll say something they don't know. They can tell I'm not American, but they don't know what I am. But they don't know that I'm Haitian. And so they say something, and then I respond, and they're like, oh, I'm like, my mother said, never talk bad about people. You never know. Never know. Don't do that. You never know. So are you done? I mean, so will you, now that you've done the loop around the country, will you do it again? Or, and what was the purpose of that? And what did you get out of it?
I have fallen in love with the lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. And I'm not always plugged, like I'm not always randomly in different spots. I actually have a membership where I can go from resort to resort to resort. So I have a little bit of continuity and Wi-Fi and all that good stuff, which is good because you can't run your business if you're traveling every day. It's because you're present, you're looking the scenery. And so I don't know, maybe I will do it again. I it's in my bones now, right? So as entrepreneurship's in my bones, you know, observing people, and what I get out of it, I get adventure. I get to feel so big and so small. Traveling from Denver to Utah is so stunning. I was stunned to tears, like just seeing this beautiful country. And you know, when you're traveling, when you could just see something it's beyond you, it's just magical. So I don't know. I mean, it's I love the lifestyle. I love having my home with me everywhere I go. My dog, I can roll up to the beach, open the door, have a coaching call, and see the ocean, you know, aquamarine right there. It's a pretty cool thing. I don't think I'll do it forever, but I'm enjoying it for now.
I think that's what kind of dog do you have? Because I'm a crazy, I don't have a dog, but I kidnap my friends' dogs all the time.
You do? She's a little white Havanese. So she's like a little white Shih Tzu. Have you ever watched the movie The Labyrinth? No, not Labyrinth. Never Ending Story.
Yeah, of course. Everyone's watching. I hope everyone's watching, but yes.
So she's my mini Valcor. She loves to have her head out the window, and she's like my little Valcor white little dragon. So I had totally imagined a Rottweiler because you're by yourself, or a golden something. I was thinking about a dog, a bigger dog, because you're by yourself. Yeah. See, because if I'm doing that, I'm getting a dog. I'm getting I mean, you'd have to take out my dog first to get to me. That's what I'm just saying. Yeah. It's so funny you say that. And I had neighbors actually say, that's interesting. It's a little dog. And then out of the blue, this German Shepherd came around the corner, and Zoe, my little dog, right at that German Shepherd, the German Shepherd ran away. I'm like, oh, okay. She's not afraid. She's not afraid. Love it. Oh my God, I love it. I have 2 more questions for you. What do you see the industry overall? Because more and more companies are saying we're getting rid of our brick and mortar, stay at home. This variance of COVID coming in and out. The second the country is open to everyone, you know it's going to be lingering. So I'm predicting where people are like, I go, yeah, 2021, we're going to be fine. I'm predicting 2023, there'll be something else, but I'm thinking that we're going to have a full control over COVID and all these different variants. So what do you believe the business world will be now? Because there are, again, those micromanagers have no more power. The CEOs, the founders are realizing my business is growing without us actually having to see each other. I can save all that money and bring you in every quarter, but how do I know who should be elevated to the next position? And as an individual, do I stay here? Do I go? How do I advocate for myself? So where do we go from here? Yeah, where do we go from here? I mean, certainly don't have all the answers. I barely have some, but what I can say is, I see it as an opportunity and a trend to be more human in the workplace and get to know your people at a deeper level. Not that you need to know every single nook and cranny. That's just too much, and there's boundaries. But I do believe that there's something to be said about having a conscious culture, even in a virtual world, where you understand and you really care for your people beyond just the job description. So I see it because how do you connect with people in a virtual world? You have to almost get to know them and know deeper aspects of their core values and where they're going, what have you, and how that connects to the larger picture. So I see it as an opportunity to create even a virtual conscious culture that puts the humanity back in the workplace. I see that trend. And vice versa. I almost to the individual person, I think that that's a good thing to demand of cultures as well, where we can be okay with the humanness. And it's already been a trend, right? We see kids on Zoom calls, it's just kind of, I think it's a good thing. I mean, there could be cons to that too, but I think it's more, we're becoming more integrated in who we are in the workplace. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So yeah, does that answer the question?
I know. I think that you answered that so well. I have this discussion with so many people where they're like, yeah, those individuals that were on unemployment, they were sitting there and just watching TV and eating bonbons and watching Tiger King. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to say that's not true for many, but I'm thinking a higher percentage were finally saying someone decided to give me money so I can invest in myself, and I'm taking online courses. I go, instead of working at Dunkin' Donuts, where now you go to Dunkin' Donuts and they're like, we're closed because we don't have enough staffing. Well, they aren't coming back because of the money. They're not coming back because they finally can figure out how to fix their situation, how to make their situation better. And I think that's one of the things where it's too easy to blame the money, but that money is helping a lot of individuals have a better life.
And to echo, and you inspire me. My heart just got like, I feel it's a really inspirational thought you just said. But I also say it gives people a reason and a purpose beyond just the thing. Like, give them a purpose, give them a direction. Maybe if it's a job that only can pay this amount of money, why don't you say, and we want to put you in a 2-year mentorship program. I'm going to show you the ropes so you can, in 2 years, you can be doing this over here, so a blend of those things. You're right. Like, I think that you're spot on. You're spot on, Jodi. I like your
think about it. I mean, Dunkin' Donuts, there's a lot of Dunkin' Donuts that are franchises that a lot of them are not closing their doors, but closing earlier because they don't have enough staffing. Starbucks doesn't have that problem. They're paying for healthcare. They're paying for insurance. During the pandemic, they found ways to we're going to still find a way to stay open. They paid their employees. And so think about those, it's great to have the McDonald's, Burger King, Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts, and everyone knows the tit for tat, but when you're seeing some of those businesses, watching how the small businesses are doing it and how they're nailing it, well, what are you learning from them? And if you can adopt that, then we're all better for it.
Absolutely. Level up.
The small businesses are the people in your neighborhood. And those people in your neighborhood, they have their ears to the ground and they know how to pivot and change. I hate that word, but I feel like I need to find it. I hate pivot, but I'm like, I use it. But it is one thing. Yeah, we need to find ways to do better by our people, because these are the same people that are doing, as they're working hard and they're doing best by us. And so us as individuals that have worked for big businesses, but we work and we're dedicating our time to small businesses and entrepreneurs and innovators. I think that we need to sit there and start embedding that a lot more, where take care of your people. Because when you take care of them, the ripple effect is they will take care of you, or they will take care of the next ripple.
Yeah, or you're not gonna, or you'll die. Like it's like the adapt or die. It's a whole new level of innovation in our society that's occurring right in front of us. So are you gonna reinvent something better, or are you gonna still be stuck in the old paradigm?
Absolutely. So. All right, because of course I did go over, because I try. Okay, this is where I'm like okay. I know there's always someone with me, or no, because my assistant emails and she's talking, she got into it, she's excited, she doesn't want to let the person go. Bear with us. So I do have a last question. The first thing I say is, this is not our last conversation. I try to bring people together because I always say that you guys have a voice that is so fresh, not refreshing, but it is fresh, and you can see things in a different way. And then I start bringing people together from other podcasts, because there's always a topic. I mean, the world offers us topics every single day. So this is not our last conversation. So I want to say that. But the second thing is that I thank you in advance for just even being here, because being a small business owner, we wear our hearts on our sleeves. And to be able to come onto a podcast and just share, and when I'm not just talking about your business, I'm talking about you and your knowledge that you bring to the table. Sometimes it's just like, oh my God, this is so awkward. This is so awkward. This is so awkward. All right, so my last question that I ask everyone, no matter how many times you talk to me, is 2 answers here. If you had a personal ask and a professional ask, so 2 different answers, personal ask and a professional ask of anyone that's listening to you right now, what would be your personal ask and what would be your professional ask?
Oh gosh, my personal ask would be to, gosh, this is a good question. My personal ask is to, can it be the same thing? Because I feel like I want both of them.
No, two different answers. No, can't be the same thing.
All right. My professional ask is for you to, if you have an inkling inside of you that's kind of gnawing at you as far as a change you want to make, and you're just kind of pushing it away. As a coach, as a person who has reinvented themselves a couple different times, don't have the courage to listen to that voice and explore it some more. That's my professional ask. Because your life is special and you're worth it, and you're worth having. It's a whole wonder out there. And my personal ask is, go out and have some fun. Go out, go to the museum like Jodi, or do something that's meditative and healing for you, which is kind of goes hand in hand. But I can tell you right now that I've done a lot of that on my own, and it's helped my life tremendously. So that's my personal ask. So it does kind of go together, but sorry.
It goes together, but I get it. Well, because you're in that space, so it's kind of like hard. It's a blurry line. I get that.
It's a blurry line, yeah.
All right, so wait, but I do have to ask. So behind you have that ocean scene, and then you have the bubbles, and so the bubbles are clearly, you can look outside, but then people can look inside too in the van, right or wrong?
Well, so this is actually a window.
Oh,
and
okay.
I had this professionally done so that I can kind of look like it's not necessarily a van in some situations, but in full transparency, that is a window. And sometimes people think I'm on a cruise ship because they've got the cabin feel here. And then this is stickers because I had this is a brand new van. They had a TV installed, and it was constantly falling off the wall. So I pulled it out, got rid of the TV, and put stickers up there. So yeah.
All right, so I thought they were like, actually, like, I mean, you could look, they were like windows.
No, they're mirrors. They're little mirrors.
Oh, I love it. Oh my God, I do love it. All right, so are you comfortable? I mean, like worst situation in the van and best situation in the van before we go. Because I mean, because you're in, it's not like you're standing up. It's not like I'm a tour bus. I mean, working in the radio, I've been on many people's tour buses. At least you could stand, but you have the little tiny little bed section. So you're in a van, and
it's tall though. This is my little couch area. This is my bed area. But it's a tall, it's a tiny home on wheels. It's 100 square feet, roughly 86 square feet. Has everything in it. Has like kitchen, has bathroom, everything. So best experience. There's too many to list, but I say one that comes to mind is I drove on to the Oregon coastline, Pacific Ocean. I was able to drive on the beach and got stuck in the sand, which is a little nerve-wracking, but random people dug me out. And I stayed overnight on the Oregon coastline on the beach. It was like my number one thing I wanted to do. I wanted to sleep on the beach and just wake up to the waves. It was just stunningly beautiful. So that was one of my highlights. One of my non-highlights was one of the places I was staying, there was a person that was following me around asking me on dates, and eventually just kind of blocking my van at one point in time. That was the worst situation. So I had to leave quickly in that situation. But other than that, I felt very safe.
Where was that?
Actually in Florida. It was
well, all right. Again, did we not just discuss this always a story in Florida? We discussed that.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. Not all Florida's bad, but there are sections for sure. So I mean, I had enough situational awareness where I just kind of, and I've got things to protect myself in different spots of my van. So I feel pretty safe. But yeah.
Does the family think that you're nuts for doing this?
My dad at first did. And then I started a private video blog where I was sharing my story with just my family. Oh. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, you look so happy." He's like, "I thought you were nuts before." And then he started sharing what I was doing with his friends, and they like, "Oh my God, that's so cool." And one girlfriend's going to do her own van life. And so now he's a whole new perspective of it. Yeah.
Oh my God. All right. So one, I'm so happy for you because I think that is, if that's the perfect version of meditation, just like going off and just enjoying the country, because people forget it's like easy to hop on a plane and go to Europe or wherever. Our country is beautiful. It really is beautiful. Give our country a chance, because when you see it, you're like blown away. I just love that you're doing this for you to help other people. That's the best thing, where you're doing this for you to help others in a better way, and leaps and bounds. There's so many times that I meet people and they're like, they're only going by academia. And I'm like, That's great, but not so much.
Yeah, it's a blended approach, right? You can learn so much from academia, but the petri dish of life is actually where the magic happens, as we said a couple different times. And Jodi, thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for saying all that good stuff. You can keep shining some more compliments if you want, but thank you for shining a light on all the entrepreneurs and giving them a voice and highlighting them, especially during this time. I think that your purpose is radiating and creating a positive impact in the world as well. So thank you for all that you do.
Oh my God, thank you, Danielle. And this is a perfect way to say thank you very much. Until next time. And I really, 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 really appreciate that you are here and making sure that those leaders continue to lead properly.
Thank you, Jodi. Have a great day.
All right, bye-bye.